All right, so today we're going all the way to South Africa,
Okay.
looking at this group, the Northeastern Free State Fire Protection Association.
Wow.
They go by Nefsfpa.
Yeah.
And we've got some info from their website, so kind of a deep dive into what they do. And, I think the big thing here is trying to understand, like, why are these fire protection associations important?
Right.
How does this one specifically work?
Yeah.
And then ultimately, what can we learn from them, from maybe folks facing similar challenges with land management and fires?
Yeah, and I think it's interesting too because we've looked at fires
Right.
in a bunch of different contexts on this show.
Totally.
So I'm curious to see how this particular group tackles it.
Yeah, and South Africa specifically, I mean, I think
Right.
we all kind of maybe have that image in our heads of like the dry grasslands. And
Huge Veld fires.
exactly, huge fires. So,
right.
I mean, right off the bat, just thinking about Veld fires, like, why are these FPAs so critical over there?
Well, I mean, you pretty much hit the nail on the head. These Veld fires,
Yeah.
they're a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, they can be super destructive.
Yeah.
And the thing is, in South Africa, they actually have this National Veld and Forest Fire Act,
Okay.
which basically recognizes that this is a shared problem.
Right.
Like, we all need to take responsibility for this.
Yeah.
And so it actually lays out a framework for landowners to come together,
Okay.
form these community-based FPAs,
So it's really like
like any FSP.
it's like built into
Well,
their
I mean,
legal system. Like,
Exactly. It's a very proactive approach
interesting.
to dealing with this problem.
Okay, so any FSFTA itself, it's not just like one little group, it's a combination of smaller groups, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So you had all these smaller FPAs in these two municipalities,
Okay.
Fumala and Malutia Fofung.
Okay.
And they basically were like, you know what, we can do this better together.
Yeah.
So they decided to merge,
Makes sense.
to pool all their resources, their knowledge, everything. And now they cover this huge area,
Yeah.
like over 1 million hectares.
It's a lot.
It's a ton of land.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's just a really good example of how, sometimes bigger can be better. You get more resources. You can be more efficient.
It's like economies of scale for
Exactly. Yeah.
firefighting.
Firefighting.
Right.
So if we think about any SFPA, what's like their main idea?
Yeah.
Like, what are they trying to do every single day?
So they don't really have like a super formal mission statement or anything.
Okay.
But when you look at what they do, it's clear that their whole goal
Yeah.
is to give people the tools and the knowledge
Yeah.
to control these Veld fires effectively.
Okay.
So it's about providing these management services,
Very
training people up, giving them support,
Okay.
and really empowering landowners to be prepared and work together.
And what does that actually look like for the folks living in this area?
So they've got a pretty robust system
Okay.
during fire season, which runs from June to November.
They actually have dedicated staff on standby,
Wow.
ready to respond.
Okay.
And they also have access to these teams called working on fire teams,
Okay.
which are like these professionally trained firefighters.
So it's like
Yeah.
a whole network
Exactly.
ready to go
Yeah, they're ready to jump in.
if something breaks out.
And on top of that, they also operate these weather stations,
Okay.
CW Price Vital Fire Weather Stations.
So they're getting real-time data?
Yeah, they're getting all this data. They're looking at historical data too.
Interesting.
And they actually use that to calculate this thing called the Fire Danger Index.
Okay.
And they send out alerts about that through WhatsApp.
Wow. So they're really using
Pretty cool.
technology to
Yeah.
get the word out.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's smart.
Yeah. And they also represent their members on this Free State Fire Advisory Forum.
Okay, so they've got like a seat at the table.
Exactly. They're
Yeah.
making sure the concerns of their members are heard at a higher level.
So beyond just the people power and the alerts, what about like actual tools and resources for managing fires?
Yeah. So one of the things they use is this platform called FireWeb,
Okay.
which is this incident management tool
Okay.
that's used by like emergency services all over the world.
Okay, so it's like a
Yeah. It helps them coordinate their response to
Okay.
fires really effectively. And then they also have their own set of rules and regulations
Okay.
for their members, and these are legally binding.
oh wow.
So everyone agrees to follow them.
So it's not just like a suggestion, it's
No, it's serious business.
wow. Okay.
And they also provide these risk mapping resources.
Okay.
So you can see like which areas are most vulnerable to fire.
So they're really thinking about it from all angles.
Absolutely. They're trying to be as proactive as possible.
So geographically, where is all this happening?
So they cover this area called the eastern part of the Taibo Mofutsanyana District Municipality.
Okay.
It's a mouthful,
It is.
but it's a big chunk of the Free State.
Okay, so who can actually be a part of this FPA?
So it's open to pretty much anyone whose land could be involved in a fire.
Okay.
So if you're a landowner, a governing body,
Okay.
if your land could start a fire or even just allow a fire to spread, you can join.
Okay.
And actually, it's mandatory for any state-owned land in their area.
Oh, wow. So they're really serious about getting everyone on board.
Absolutely. And the benefit is huge.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you get access to these standby teams,
Right.
the weather data,
The alerts,
the whole
like support network.
It's a really valuable resource.
Okay. And this all costs money, right?
It does, yeah.
So what's the membership look like financially?
So most members pay a base fee,
Okay.
plus an amount is based on how much land they have.
Okay.
So right now it's 300 Rand plus 50 cents per hectare.
Okay.
But that base fee is going up to 500 Rand in 2025.
Oh, wow. Okay. So it's something to keep in mind if you're
Yeah.
thinking about joining. So you mentioned rules and regulations.
Yeah.
What are some of the key things that members have to follow?
So there are a bunch of important ones,
Okay.
all designed to kind of minimize the risk of fires.
Okay.
So first off, they have really specific requirements for fire breaks.
Okay.
Like you have to have them along road edges and property boundaries,
Okay.
and you have to maintain them.
So it's not just like
You can't just like,
build it and forget it.
no, you got to keep it up.
Okay.
And then if you want to burn anything, like for land management purposes,
Yeah.
you have to get a permit.
Okay.
And they don't just hand those out like candy.
Right.
It depends on the fire danger index.
Okay.
Like if it's too high, they're not going to give you a permit.
So it's all tied to
Yeah, it's all connected
to the actual
Yeah.
conditions.
Interesting.
And then they also have this seasonal fire ban
Okay.
during the driest part of the year, which is August 1st to October 31st.
So no burning at all.
No burning allowed
Okay.
during that time. And I imagine there are rules about like equipment too.
Yeah. So depending on the size of your property,
Okay.
you have to have a certain amount of firefighting equipment on hand,
Okay.
like at the ready.
So it's like you need to be able to
Yeah, you got to be prepared.
deal with this yourself to an extent.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
And the big thing is, if you burn without a permit,
Yeah.
you're fully liable
Oh, wow.
if that fire escapes.
So they're not messing around.
No, they're serious about this stuff.
It's a big deal.
It is.
Okay, so they're not doing all of this alone. Who are they working with?
So their main partners
Mm-hmm.
are Working on Fire,
Okay.
who we talked about before. Those are the guys who provide the firefighting teams.
Right.
And then they also work closely with the people who operate those vital fire weather stations.
Okay, so it's like a combination of
And it's all about collaboration.
local knowledge and then expertise
Exactly.
from these firefighters.
You need both.
So big picture, what's the main takeaway about Nefsfpa?
I think it's a really great example of how a community can come together
Yeah.
to tackle a really serious environmental problem.
Yeah.
They're being proactive. They've got these services. They've
Yeah.
got these clear rules and regulations.
Yeah.
They've got strong partnerships.
Yeah.
And it's all about protecting both the environment and the people living there.
Yeah, and it seems like it's really effective.
Yeah. It's
That's
working.
a good model, I think.
It's a model for other places to look at, for sure.
Yeah, it really shows you that even with something as massive as like a wildfire threat,
Right.
you can still do something about it.
Absolutely. You don't have to just sit back and wait for it to happen.
Yeah, and it's really like a local solution
Yeah.
for a local problem.
Yeah. It's tailored to their specific needs and their specific environment.
But it's definitely something to think about.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think that's a good place to leave it.
Yeah, I think so.
Thanks for this deep dive into Nefsfpa.
Yeah, this was really interesting.
Yeah.
I learned a lot.
Me too.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's it for today.
All right.
We'll see you next time.